The instrument we play has a dramatic influence on our music. Of course, we all love strapping on a good old Strat, or Taylor, or Les Paul, or 335. On the other hand, instruments sounding more unpredictable and original could be even more inspiring. Different sounds, surprisingly, lead to explore unusual paths, which are fertile ground for fresh and interesting ideas. In this episode, we are taking a well-deserved break from the overwhelming power of Gibson and Fender in the vintage market and focusing our attention on a guitar that may be generally underrated and overlooked. My dear friend and outstanding guitar player Vincenzo Tropepe came for a visit and was so kind to show me his all-original vintage 1965 Silvertone 1448, known as the amp-in-case guitar. The Sears and Roebuck Company is out of question a piece of the American everyday life history. Back in the early 1900s, even people living in the more remote and isolated provinces of the United States virtually had anything they wanted at their fingertips. Whatever an American family of the time needed, Sears and Roebuck had the answer. The company, based in Chicago, offered retail mail-order service since the 1890s. For about one century, an illustrated catalog with more than 1,000 pages was punctually dropped in the mail. It enlisted any sorts of merchandise. You could buy anything, including a live chicken, a car, a sniper's rifle, a prefabricated bungalow house, and even a tombstone at a discount price. It's no wonder that, when it came the time, after the rock and roll explosion, you could also buy an electric guitar. Silvertone was not a real manufacturer, it was just a brand used by Sears and Roebuck to market its lines of consumer electronics and musical instruments. Silvertone products were offered in the catalog from 1916 to 1972. The guitars bearing the name Silvertone on the headstock were manufactured by various third-party companies, including Harmony, National, Kay, Teisco, and Danelectro. Of course, each manufacturer used their own design, materials, and procedures. As a result, Silvertone guitars, produced by different makers, were substantially different, the name on the headstock being the only consistency or common denominator. The Silvertone models 1448 and 1457 were produced by Danelectro in Neptune, New Jersey, and sold through the Sears mail-order catalog from 1962 to 1967. Actually, they were not just guitars, but rather all-inclusive packages. Joe Fisher, buyer for musical instruments at Sears, wanted to offer an inexpensive all-in-one bundle for the absolute beginner, including anything needed to start playing electric guitar. Nathan Nat Daniel, founder of Danelectro, was courting Fisher for a contract, and they came up with a brilliant cost-effective solution. The guitar came in a case with a small built-in valve amplifier. In Joe Fisher's words, Nat was an innovator who understood the principle of rigid control of expense. In fact, Nat Daniel was a genius of cost optimization. Danelectro instruments were and still are an example of excellent value for the money. The catalog described the items as an all-in-one electric guitar outfit. It also included a how-to-play leaflet with chord charts, a 7 inches 45 tutorial record, a 10-feet cable and a pick. The basic 1448 was the entry-level model offered at the affordable price of $69 and $95. If you could spend $30 more, reaching the budget of $99 and $95, you could buy what the Sears catalog presented as the finest, the 1457 in red sunburst finish. It had a dual pickup for more tones and a longer neck with 21-fret fingerboard. The amplifier could rely on a larger 8-inch speaker and one more tube for a little extra power. It also had tremolo effect with remote foot switch. The two amping case models have typical Danelectro semi-hollow body construction. A pine frame core is sandwiched in Masonite top and back panels. A textured white vinyl binding or edge trim covers the sides, making a nice match with the white Masonite pickguard. The 1448 model has black finish with silver sparkles, described in the catalog as gleaming silver color accents, a frequent motif on silver-tone guitars. The intonation relies on the traditional Danelectro chrome bridge plate assembly, with adjustable rosewood saddle and the aluminum nut. Nat Daniel didn't care about using quality body materials in an electric guitar, while concentrated all his attention on the neck. Surprisingly, the popular neck has a wonderful figured Brazilian rosewood fingerboard, a feature that most top-end guitars of today can only envy. The headstock has a paddle shape and mounts 6-in-a-line skate key tuners. Another easily recognizable Danelectro feature on the Silvertone amping case guitars is the so-called lipstick tubes pickups with their trademark jangly sound. The name is not only due to their aspect. The first pickups made by Danelectro had the magnets actually housed in real surplus lipstick tubes that Nat Daniel had sourced from a cosmetic manufacturer and recycled as a cost-saving measure. The dual pickup model 1457 had the two lipstick tubes wired in series instead of in parallel like most other makers' guitars. This means that even if their Alnico bar magnet is wound to a low output, the two pickups used together behave like a humbucker and deliver a bolder sound. Earlier 1448 models have plastic peghead tips and 2-bolt neck attachment. The amplifier has a 5-inch speaker. In 1964, they upgraded to a 3-bolt-on neck, all-metal tuners, and a 6-inch speaker. This 1448 is from late 1965. It has a 3 watts Class A tube amplifier with 6-inch speaker, manufactured by Fisher Radio Corporation, New York. Danelectro offered a much similar amplifier as a small combo, the Cadet 123 model. The amp case is surprisingly performing. It reveals a nice nasal tone. An aggressive snarl compensates its lack of headroom. I like the sound of the bottleneck sliding on the old oxidized strings. Seem much appropriate to the character of this vintage instrument. The 1448 does not only rely on the amping case gimmick. The tone is also very interesting with other amplifiers. That's how it does with my 1964 Vox AC30 Top Boost. I can only imagine the joy of the American teenagers of the time when they finally received by mail their first electric guitar. They could now bring their electric guitar outfit with them when hanging out with friends at parties, or, as the Sears ad maliciously suggested, even at school. Many of those teenagers took up a career of musicians, and some of them became recording stars. Many of those established rock musicians remained attached to their Silvertone. We could draw up a long list of rock stars who, more or less occasionally, have used the Silvertone 1448 in performances, photos, or jam sessions on the road. The most devoted endorsers since Nancy Sinatra seem to be Beck and Dexter Dex Romweber of the Flat Duo Jets.
Trouble goes a-beating right outside my door. Well, the trouble goes a-beating right outside my door.
Romweber well describes the reason of his devotion to the Silvertone 1448. His words remind our initial considerations. Other guitars are just way too clean for me. There are other artists that I like that play Gibsons and Fenders, but in terms of what I do, for me, Silvertone is where it's at. I love the sound I get out of that baby. The 1448 has a sound that I always compared to an organ. It's a blues sound, it's a raw sound, it's a bassy sound, and like I said, it's not too clean.
Rockin' to the rhythm, 1, 2, 3 and 4.
As for testimonials, my personal pick is the Texan Alex Gomez. He's pictured on the cover of his great debut album Always Never from 2004 with a nice 1448.
Cocaine girl, yeah, you're a real wild child.
I won't hesitate to define Alex Gomez the most unknown and underrated slide guitar genius of the past 20 years. We were lucky enough to share the stage with him in California, and we became friends. Last time I heard from him, he decided to start a new career as Sister Alexa and created a YouTube channel with tutorial videos. Sadly, I completely lost track of this great artist for many years. If you have any news, please get in touch and let me know. I would greatly appreciate it. In 1966, Nat Daniel sold his business to MCA Music Corporation of America, following a general trend of the time, as we will also discuss in the next episode. In the course of 1967, the 1448 and 1457 were respectively replaced by the 1451 and 1452 models with different body shape and a retouched price. Daniel remained head of Danelectro until 1969 when MCA closed the company down. In the late 1990s, the Californian Evets Corporation acquired the Danelectro brand. In 2008, they produced the Dano 63, reminiscent of the original amping case models, except that they didn't actually include an amplifier in the case. We all owe so much to the invention of Daniel and Fisher. The affordable electric guitars of the Sears catalog became precious instruments in the hands of Delta bluesmen and teenagers' garage rock bands of the 60s. Their distinct tone helped to revolutionize the music and define the culture of a new generation. Don't hesitate to let me know any opinion and impression in the comments below or in our Facebook group. Take a moment to subscribe to the BTR channel and hit the bell to keep posted about the next episodes.